Brene Brown is one of the most watched TED Talk speakers of all time. Researcher, author, someone who has spent her entire career studying human connection and performance. And she tells a story about what happens when someone is struggling and the people around them try to help out by trying to help the person struggling stay positive. So she describes it like this. Imagine someone falls into a hole. It's dark. They're overwhelmed. They don't know how to get out. And then someone peers down from the top and says, wow, that does look bad. But hey, at least you have a hole. Some people don't even have a hole. We laugh at that, right? Because it's absurd. She points out how that is exactly what we do to each other every day. We say, at least you still have your health. At least you saw it coming. At least you have a lot to be grateful for. Just stay positive. It'll all work out, Good vibes only. Everything happens for a reason. You just need to choose happiness. And every at least or, positive vibes past is disconnection dressed up as comfort. It looks like support. It actually says, though, your pain is something I need to move past before I can be with you.
And the reason it lands hard is because most of us have been on both sides. We've felt the hollow feeling when someone, probably well-meaning, says something like, well, at least, blah, blah, blah. And if we're honest, we've also done that very thing to someone else. So today we're talking about why that reflex exists, why it's more damaging than it looks, and how it connects to something most people get completely backwards. Because it turns out the way we've been taught to build confidence has the same problem. We keep trying to feel our way to it. And the science says that's the wrong direction entirely. Why trying to feel confident might be the exact thing stopping you from becoming confident. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Mental Fitness Podcast in partnership with NUE, that's NUE, where we explore real tools and stories for building mental strength in the modern world.
All right, let's start with confidence itself, because I think most of us have this picture in our heads of what it is, and that picture is part of the problem. When most people think about confidence, they think of it as one of three things. Either it's a personality trait, you're either born with it or you're not. Some people have it, some people don't. Or it's a feeling, this sense of certainty and self-assurance that you need to generate before you can act. Or it's something you build through mindset work, affirmations, positive self-talk, visualization, that kind of thing. And we've been, surrounded by this messaging our whole lives. When someone says, you've got this, or believe in yourself, manifest your best self, good vibes. And the intention behind all of this is genuinely good. People want to feel better. People want to help others feel better. But here's where it starts to go wrong. And a lot of that messaging is actually teaching people to bypass the very process that builds real confidence. It's kind of handing you a shortcut that doesn't lead anywhere.
But okay, wait, hold on. I want to push back on something. Isn't optimism a good thing? I mean, there's a lot of research showing that optimistic people are happier, healthier, they live longer, they're more resilient. I'm generally an optimistic person, and I've always felt that that's an advantage. Are we saying positive thinking is bad? Because that doesn't really align with the studies and not even with my own personal experience.
No, yeah, optimism is not bad. And this is actually one of the most important things we need to get right in this conversation, because this is where a lot of the confusion lives. We're not saying optimism is bad. The data on that, like you said, Dave, is real and it is compelling. What we're talking about here is something different, and we can kind of break it down, but there's actually three things that people constantly lump together here, and as if they're all the same thing, but they're not. The first is what you're saying is optimism, which is by definition just a genuine orientation towards the future. It's a belief that, things will work out, the effort matters, tomorrow doesn't have to look like today, and that's healthy. So optimism is a good thing. The second is positive affirmations, which, as you know, it's kind of like the mirror work, declarative statements that you repeat to yourself. I am confident, I'm enough, I'm fearless. That's a specific mechanism, and that specifically is where the backfire research starts to show up, which we'll get into. So there's optimism, there's positive affirmations, and then there's toxic positivity, which is when positivity becomes a tool for avoidance. When the good vibes only, or at least you have this, is actually a way of not dealing and sitting with what's real. So when someone's pain gets dismissed because the discomfort of sitting with it is too much, you're not sitting with the emotion.
Yeah, so it's not that positivity is the enemy.
Right, correct. It's that these three things are treated as the same thing, and they are not. And that's the confusion, and that's exactly what we're unpacking today. So let's reframe confidence properly now. Confidence isn't a feeling that you manufacture. It's a conclusion your brain draws from evidence. And you can only collect that evidence by acting, not by thinking your way to it first.
So confidence is a conclusion your brain draws from experience and from evidence. It comes after action, not before it, and that means it's trainable, but only through the right inputs, which is why we're talking about it on the Mental Fitness podcast, because this is capacity building. This is an active process, not a passive one. So let's get into the science. What makes this conversation different is that we're not just saying positive thinking is bad. There's actually a really interesting body of research that explains why certain approaches backfire around positive thinking.
Yes. And the first one genuinely surprised me when we first came across it, because it goes against everything we've been told or assumed or culture has positioned us to see. There's a researcher named Joanne Wood at the University of Waterloo. And in 2009, she ran a study looking at the effect of positive self-statements on people with low self-esteem. And what she found was that when people with low self-esteem repeated positive statements like, I am a lovable person, they actually felt worse afterward. Not better, worse.
That's the exact opposite of what you'd expect.
Yeah, it's completely counterintuitive. And the reason is cognitive dissonance. When your brain hears a statement that doesn't match what it already believes, it doesn't just accept it. Your brain pushes back. Your brain sees a gap between the claim you're saying and the evidence, and it actually doubles down on the negative belief to defend what it sees as reality. It's not, the evidence isn't there.
So when you repeat something over and over again that you don't really believe, there's cognitive dissonance, and your brain is basically fact-checking you.
Exactly. It's like being a lawyer and trying to tell a skeptical jury, just trust me. That's not how it works. Your brain doesn't work well on just trust me. You have to show evidence, and your brain is the jury. It needs proof, not declarations.
This is important because a lot of people have tried affirmations. They've done the mirror work. They've written the statements. They said the words, and it just didn't land. And they probably thought that there's something wrong with them. Why isn't this working? It can be frustrating. But it's not that there's anything wrong with them. It's that the mechanism itself has real limitations.
Yeah, it's not a you problem. It's a mismatch problem. Now, the second thing, and this is where toxic positivity connects directly to the neuroscience. It's what happens when we've had episodes on, emotional labeling and emotional regulation, but it's when we suppress emotions rather than process them. Mm-hmm. And there's a researcher at Stanford, James Gross, who has spent years studying emotional regulation. And one of his core findings is that when we suppress emotions, when we push them down, when we override them and try to stay positive over the top of them, our physiological stress response actually increases. Even if we look calm, the internal cost goes up, not down.
That's so interesting how important it is just to connect with yourself, to feel what you're feeling. And if you're feeling unconfident or scared or unqualified, to acknowledge that. I mean, I just think that that's awesome. You can look fine on the outside, but when you're ignoring your emotions, your nervous system is working overtime. And on the flip side, what does reduce stress response is labeling that emotion, acknowledging what you're feeling, naming it. There's a term for this, it's affect labeling. And the research shows that putting a name to an emotion, that reduces activity in the amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, the emotional side of the brain. And it actually reduces activity there and calms you down just by naming the emotion. So naming it actually has a real effect on how you feel.
Yes. And on that topic specifically, again, we have a whole podcast episode on this. We also have on mental.fitness resources for naming and taming emotions and emotional regulation. So check those out. But yes, you're right. It does. And this is why toxic positivity can be counterproductive. When you tell someone or yourself to just be positive in a genuinely difficult moment, you're not resolving that emotion. You're suppressing it. And like we talked about in that episode previously, it leaks out anyway. The signals are going to come out, as anxiety, irritability, avoidance. You've just changed the form it comes out in. Think of it like kind of like on a lid on a boiling pot. It looks contained, but it's not. The pressure's building.
Yeah, that's a really good image. And I think most people have experienced that where they've held it together, and for a number of reasons, kind of suppressing those emotions, and then they completely lose it over something small. It's like the pot lid blowing off. The pressure builds up inside and eventually just pops off. Okay, the third piece, and this is really the foundation of everything else we're going to talk about today, is how confidence is actually built. And for this, I want to go back to a psychologist named Albert Bandura, who developed what he called self-efficacy theory, which is essentially a framework for understanding where belief in your own ability comes from. So what Bandura found is that the single strongest predictor of confidence in any domain is what he called mastery experiences. So again, this isn't positive thinking, positive affirmations, just going in with a lot of confidence. It's mastery experiences. It's actually doing the thing, especially doing it through difficulty. So not watching someone else do it, not being taught how to do it or being told that you can do it, not even visualizing yourself doing it, but doing it. And this one surprised me because I've heard a lot and believed a lot in visualization, and I think that there's still some benefit in that. They've, studies of guys who practice free throws mentally every day by visualizing themselves, and then guys who actually practice them, and then a third group that doesn't practice. And of course, the group that practices the free throws improves the most. The group that visualizes themselves practicing them improves a little bit, and then the group that doesn't practice doesn't improve. And that's sort of just data showing that sometimes visualization can have effect here. But what's interesting here is we're talking about building confidence. In that case, I don't think it directly applies because that's something a skill that people have already developed. And the visualization is a form of practice. But here we're talking about new experiences, right? And the person but it's by doing it, not by visualizing it. A person becomes a confident public speaker when they don't, by imagining those talks or practice them. It's when they actually get up in front of a group and give a talk.
Yes. No, exactly. It's the one who gave the 20 uncomfortable talks and kind of pushed themselves, and they survived every single one of those. That's where the confidence comes from, the evidence of actually doing it.
And I think the best example to really explain how visualization has its limitations is you don't get strong by imagining lifting weights, right? The only way you're going to actually improve your muscle strength is by lifting weights.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. The discomfort there is the mechanism. It's not the obstacle to building confidence. It's all part of the process.
Yeah. I want to just pause here for a second because I think it's worth acknowledging how counterintuitive all of this is, because we've been surrounded by the opposite messaging. At least I have my whole life. And it's in self-help books. It's on social media. It's what well-meaning people say to each other every day.
And again, it comes from a genuinely good place. People want to feel better. People want to help. Nobody's just knowingly pushing toxic positivity because they want to cause harm, right? The intention is good. The mechanism is just wrong. So good intentions with the wrong tool still produce bad outcomes.
So the question becomes, if affirmations and just stay positive aren't the answer, then what does building real confidence actually look like day to day? In your real life, in your relationships, at work, in how you see yourself, what does that actually look like? So let's start with an example of work or a career, because I think that's where most people fill the confidence gap most acutely.
Yeah, and the pattern you see most often there is the person is waiting to feel ready. The promotion they haven't gone for, the idea they haven't pitched, the business they want to start. And when you ask them why, they say some version of, I'm just not confident enough, or I'm not ready yet. And even if they aren't saying that directly, that's kind of what they're saying underneath.
From the outside, you want to say, but you're qualified, you have the skills.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're not lazy. It's not like they're lacking ambition. They've been taught by culture, by messaging, by well-meaning people around them that the feeling of readiness should come first, that you wait until it arrives and then you act. And I think we can all see that in ourselves. Like you can all think of a time when you've acted this way or waited for the feeling before you've act, right? So readiness is a feeling that follows action. It's not a prerequisite for it.
Yeah. The reframe is, what if you acted at 60% confidence and you didn't wait till 100%? It kind of reminds me of what we're just saying. Arthur Brooks, who's, teaches a science of happiness class at Harvard Business College and written a lot of books. And he talks about how happiness isn't a feeling. The feeling of happiness is evidence that you're living a happy life. But happiness is in the doing. And if we seek the feeling, and if we're seeking the feeling of happiness, we're more susceptible to doing things that can become addictive behaviors and destructive in our life, because we're like, something's wrong with me? I'm not feeling happy. And what Arthur Brooks says is it's because you're not doing the things that lead to happiness. If we wait till we feel confidence before we act, we'll never act. So what if 60%, is the starting line, not the disqualifier? Because here's the truth. Almost nobody acts from a place of complete certainty. The people who look confident on the outside are mostly just people who got comfortable with the discomfort of moving forward with 60% confidence and not 100%.
I like that. I want to restate that. You said the people who look confident from the outside are mostly just people who get comfortable with the discomfort of moving at 60%. That's so true. So that's a good example in the context of someone's career. Let's talk about relationships, because I think toxic positivity shows up in a really specific way here. Think about a time a friend came to you with something hard and your instinct was to immediately fix it. Or friendship, a spouse, anything, where you say, it'll be fine. Just look on the bright side. At least you've got XYZ. And again, you probably do care. The intention is caring. But what you've actually communicated there is your negative emotion is a problem that I need to solve or move past.
Yeah, and the person on the receiving end registers that. They might not name it, but they feel it. And maybe they're less likely to come to you next time, because what they actually needed was to feel seen and understood, not fixed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why people sometimes just say, hey, like a spouse, just listen to me. Don't try to solve or fix this. And this is where we want to introduce a distinction we think is really useful. The difference between earned optimism and performed optimism. So performed optimism is positivity as a social reflex. This is where you do skip straight to it'll be fine, because sitting with someone's pain they might be sharing with you is uncomfortable for you, or can be. It looks supportive on at a surface level, but it's actually an exit. You've left the building before the conversation has even happened.
Yeah, earned optimism is what you get after you've accomplished reality. You validate the hard thing first. So this is genuinely difficult. And here's what I think is still possible. So you learn that's optimism that hasn't been earned through honesty.
Yeah, this is genuinely difficult, and here's what I think is still possible. Yeah, you can hold two truths there, right? It can still be really, really hard thing, but you can still move forward with optimism.
Yeah. What about the internal version? How does this play out in how we see ourselves? The version of this I think is interesting is the person who's been telling themselves a very positive story about who they are, but it's never been stress test. They believe they're resilient. They believe they're capable. They believe they can handle XYZ if that happened, but they've never actually been in the discomfort long enough to find out, and then something hard happens. And the story they've been telling themselves doesn't necessarily stand up to the test. And it's not because they didn't want to believe that, but it's because there wasn't any evidence. They didn't have the experiential evidence to assert that what they were saying was true.
Yeah, that's true. Real self-confidence isn't just, I feel good about myself. It's, I know I can handle what's in front of me because I've done hard things before. And knowing that is different from the feeling. The knowing is durable from the evidence you gather, right? It doesn't disappear when things get hard because that evidence was built in hard things. And this is why confidence is such a core mental fitness concept. It's not a trait, it's a capacity. And like physical fitness, it degrades without use. It grows through progressive overload, bigger challenges, more discomfort, more evidence.
I just want to jump in here and just make a comment. As a father, I've raised a lot of boys, and I've noticed this, that I'm a very positive parent in general. I'm always telling my kids they can do anything, and we put our kids in sports. I think sports is a really great way for children to learn confidence. There's a number of ways children learn confidence, but it's doing things so they can have that experiential evidence that they can do hard things. And sports just creates a lot of unique opportunities of overcoming adversity and learning new skills and being put in uncomfortable situations. And I'm generally a positive person, and I even wonder, as we've prepared and researched for this episode, if sometimes I've been too positive in terms of too much of a cheerleader. But I've learned and seen firsthand that you can't coach confidence. I can't just positively talk up my kids enough to where they feel it. They have to do it. So I try to pump them up before that swim meet or that water polo game or the basketball game or whatever it is. And then I try to provide them good, encouraging feedback afterwards and actionable feedback on things they can do to improve. And that can be helpful. But at the end of the day, it's only when they do it. It's only when they make the basket or when they drop a time in a swim meet or when they score a goal in water polo. It's only when they actually accomplish it themselves that confidence starts to build. And as a parent, you can't just instill confidence in your kids by the way you talk to them. What you can do is create experiences for them where they're challenged, where they're put in discomfort, and encourage them to move forward, but only as they move forward in discomfort does real confidence build. And you just can't teach it. You can't just inspire them by your own example and your own positive words to be confident. It could only happen through their own experiences.
Well said. Yeah, I love that example.
All right, this show is all about mental fitness, and here's something most of us don't admit. Everyone has those moments when you feel overwhelmed, stuck, or unsure, and what's actually going on in your head. That's why we built New. New is a mental fitness platform designed to help you clear your thoughts, reflect, notice patterns, develop habits, and get support that fits who you are. It remembers your goals, your wins, the things you're working on, and helps you stay on track. Not therapy, not toxic positivity, just real support when you need it. If you want to be part of the early access group, head to talkwithnew.com. That's talkwithnue.com.
Okay, Mental Fitness Podcast, right? We're always trying to give some practical frameworks or things you can apply. So let's make this practical, because I think one of the things we want people to walk away with today is not just a new way of thinking about confidence, but something you can actually do. And the framework we want to walk you through right now is called the confidence loop. It's 3 steps, and it's the actual mechanism behind how confidence actually gets built. So step 1, do the scary small thing. It's not always the whole thing. It's the entry point. It's again, the starting line is the 60%, like you said earlier, Dave. The smallest version of what might be uncomfortable. That might be one email you're putting off, one conversation you just keep avoiding. It's 1 rep. The size doesn't matter. What matters is that it generates a small amount of discomfort, just like you were saying, Dave, with your kids, that you've been avoiding, because the action is the first step. It's the only thing that starts this out of the three steps here.
And then step 2 is collect the evidence. So this is the step most people skip. After the action, you have to consciously register what happened. You name it out loud or in your head. I did that. It was uncomfortable and I survived. Your brain needs to explicitly mark that moment, because when anxiety is high, the brain's threat detection system is looking for danger, and it needs you to actively redirect it toward the evidence of what actually just happened.
Yes. Step 2, collect the evidence. Step 3 is raise the floor. So each time you can complete this loop, it raises your baseline. The thing that maybe made your stomach drop last month when you were thinking about it now becomes a little bit more manageable. And that's not confidence just coming from the universe and arriving out of thin air. The confidence is truly being manufactured loop by loop through this accumulated evidence, right? And the enemy of this confidence loop, the thing that resets it every time, is avoidance. Every time you use a positive affirmation or just try to suppress things and good vibes only, it overrides instead of doing the thing. You're not just staying still. You're reinforcing that belief that the thing is too dangerous to face. So the loop doesn't pause. It goes backwards.
Yeah, to bring that together, the confidence loop is really 3 moves. You do the uncomfortable thing even when you don't feel ready. You consciously register that you did it. That's collecting evidence. And over time, that evidence raises the floor. And what used to scare you becomes your new normal, your new baseline. And the trap is thinking that you can shortcut the process with positive thinking. You just can't. The loop only starts when you act.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to go back to step 2. And when you said this is the step most people skip, the collect the evidence, I think it shows how important connection to self is in relation to confidence. Because if you're not in the practice of, for instance, just reflecting on your day or reflecting on things personally, internally, how are you going to collect the evidence, right? How are you going to recognize that and reflect that?
And even just that daily reflection at the end of a day as a habit can just be part of a daily confidence loop. Or each morning it's like, what's the uncomfortable thing I'm gonna work on trying doing today? And then in the evening reflecting on, I did it. How did it feel? Okay, I survived. Great. And that will raise the floor.
Exactly. Okay, let's switch gears here, David. Let's talk about a few common pitfalls or mistakes where things could go wrong, because even with all of this, there are a couple traps that are really easy to fall back into.
Yes. The first one is using affirmations as avoidance. And I want to be careful here because we're not saying affirmations are always bad.
Exactly. There is a version that works. And the key difference here is whether the affirmation leads to action or replaces it.
Yes.
You know, when you say something like, I am fearless, or I'm awesome, I could do anything, you're just making a declaration. It's disconnected from behavior. And that's the version that backfires. But in another example, in my home growing up, there was a wooden sign at the door whenever you leave that my parents put up, and it said, I'm the kind of person who does hard things. That's a difference because that's more aspirational. That's more action linked, right? Does hard things. That can actually point you toward the loop rather than away from it. So again, the question to ask is, does this affirmation statement make me more likely to act, or does it make me feel like I already have?
And the second trap is waiting for the feeling before starting. We talked a little bit about this. Courage is acting in the presence of fear. Confidence is what you feel afterwards. And I love the famous quote from John Wayne. Actually, one of my sons has a John Wayne t-shirt with this quote on the back, and he just loves it. But John Wayne said, "Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway." And I just love that quote. You don't earn the feeling first. You earn it by doing even when you don't feel ready.
I love that quote. The last common pitfall is being toxically positive towards yourself. This one's a little underrated because we talk a lot about toxic positivity as something, in this episode as we receive from other people or give to other people. And it is, but the internal version is just as damaging. Overriding your own real emotional signals with affirmations or good vibes filter, telling yourself to stop feeling what you're actually feeling. That's not strength. Again, that's emotional suppression. And we've already talked about where that goes.
Yeah. So this whole episode reminds me, as I've reflected back on my career, I can think back early in my career, I was studying computer science, and after just 1 year of school, I lined up an internship in Germany with Siemens Semiconductors, which was this, the largest German company, and I was super excited about it. I already spoke German. I was excited about the opportunity to live in Europe. But as it got closer, I became scared to death because I was going there to build a web page for one of their products. And I had never built a web page before. I'd studied 1 year, just 1 year of computer science, and I'd never done it before. And I was so scared, I almost canceled the internship. And I was talking to my brother, and he did a really good job. He wasn't just saying, "Oh, you'll be fine, you'll be fine." He asked me why I was feeling the way I was and acknowledged it and said, do they know that you've only been in 1 year of school? And I said, yes. And they said, then they hired you anyway. Okay, then clearly they can't expect too much from you. You're going to be fine. When you go there, you're going to learn. And I was really scared, but I decided to move forward and had a great internship. I learned a lot. I learned how to build HTML and JavaScript. This is way back when. And it was a really good experience. And it built a tremendous amount of confidence in me. The very next summer, same thing. I had another internship lined up with a big US company. And I was going to be doing serious software development. And I'd only been to 2 years of college. And I felt unqualified. And remembering, leaning on my experience from the summer before I decided to go in, I was scared to death. But had an amazing experience. And learned a lot. And met expectations. And everyone liked what I did. And they offered me a full-time job later. I didn't take it, but I I guess passed the internship, if you will. Those two back-to-back experiences, as I've reflected, totally shaped my entire career. Because now, through the rest of my career, finishing school, first job, and subsequent positions, there's been many times when I've taken on a role that I don't yet know how to do, or gone to a new role. And I've had that same feeling again, but I had evidence. I've proven to myself, I've been here before, I can do it. I learned to be comfortable in the discomfort and actually have in my career sought out positions that I was not fully qualified for yet. Not totally unqualified, but not quite there. And I've sought those out. And those experiences gave me a tremendous amount of confidence. And I think the best thing that ever happened in my career was that very first internship and being scared to death.
Wow.
To me, it just brings a lot of these things together. It was only by doing. My brother wasn't just telling me, he encouraged me, but he acknowledged my feelings. But it's not something anyone could have told me. I had to go through it.
Yeah. No, that makes me think of, and I've used this phrase And I actually want to ask you a question, David, what you think of this phrase. The phrase "fake it till you make it." Like, I could see some negative connotation to that. Like, are you tricking your mind there? But to me, I see it now in a little bit more of a positive lens, where it's like, fake it till you make it is almost, you're at 60% confidence to just do it.
Yeah, I like that quote. It can be misunderstood. Clearly, I'm not talking about taking on roles that you're totally
Completely
unqualified for. I'm not going to apply for a job as a surgeon. I've never been to med school. But if I, and I think that we probably have all met people who attempt that kind of thing. They're just clearly unqualified. What I'm talking about is that 60%. Like, I've never applied for a job I just felt like I had no business applying for, but I have applied for jobs that I knew was a stretch. Wasn't sure if they'd hire me. I wasn't sure if I could fully do it. But I mean, at least I knew enough to like understand what the role was.
Right.
But there is a little bit of a fake it till you make it, but not in a disingenuous way, but more in just a way of just understanding that in life, no one, whatever the role is, you want to be a VP, you want to be a CTO, you want to be a CEO, you want to be whatever it is, no one learns how to do that before doing it the first time.
Yes.
No one. The
That's
only
so
way
true.
to learn it is to do it.
And honestly, once you do get into leadership positions and you see new leaders and stuff come in, you'll realize a lot of people are acting on the 60% around you. A lot of people don't have it all figured out.
And this is what I admire a lot about entrepreneurs, because you go out and there's a whole bunch of stuff you have no clue. You have a skill or an idea or something you want to bring to the market, but you might not know how to do the accounting side of the business or the marketing or the people management or whatever it is. But entrepreneurs, particularly successful entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs to some extent have this like confidence in their ability to learn. They're willing to step into that discomfort. And that's what makes entrepreneurship really hard, but also so rewarding, because you build confidence that can't be built any other way. A successful entrepreneur, they are some of the most confident people in the world. And whether you like him or not from a political standpoint, if you look at Elon Musk, he has had so many successes, he literally believes he can colonize Mars. I mean, he can do anything. He fully believes he can do anything, because why not? He built PayPal. He built Tesla. He's built SpaceX, rockets that can land, the first company ever to do that. Like, he's built the Boring Company. I mean, at some point, he has so much evidence behind him. Like, of course he believes he can colonize Mars. He believes he can do anything. But the interesting thing is he also has enough experience that investors believe him too. So they're willing to back him.
That's true. No, that's a good point. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, Elon Musk, people like that, they're willing their vision into existence. Willing being the verb, the action.
Yeah. Right. All right. Let's bring this home, because I want people to walk away from this episode with a few ideas clear in their mind. So here's what we've covered today. Confidence is not a feeling you wait for. It's not really a feeling at all. The feeling of confidence is evidence of what you've learned about yourself. It's a conclusion your brain draws from experience, and the only way to get it is through experience, which means the feeling comes after, not before. So that's the first idea. And then the other one is that toxic positivity and hollow affirmations are not the same as optimism. Optimism is healthy, and the data supports it. It is a good thing. I'm saying that as an optimist. But when positivity becomes a tool for avoidance, and when it's used to skip past real emotions or bypass the discomfort of acting, it stops being helpful and starts becoming harmful.
And then the practical side, the mechanism for building real confidence is the confidence loop. Small action, collect the evidence, raise the floor. That's it. It's very simple, but it requires the one thing that no affirmation can replace, which is actually doing the uncomfortable thing. And the most dangerous version of this isn't having low confidence. That's not the problem. It's the avoidance dressed up as positivity, because at least when you know you're avoiding something, you can name it. When avoidance looks and feels like self-care, that's harder to see.
Yeah, the core takeaway for today: confidence isn't built by feeling better about yourself. It's built by proving to yourself, one uncomfortable action at a time, that you can handle what's in front of you.
So let's leave you with one question to sit with this week. Where in your life are you waiting to feel confident before you act? And what's the smallest possible action you could take instead? You don't need to do the whole thing. You just need to start the loop.
And one last thought. I just want to repeat that John Wayne quote because I feel like it captures the essence of what we've talked about so well. Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. If this episode landed for you, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next week.